Everyone, welcome to the shooting phase. This is part of our introduction series and we're working through phase by phase, so let's just get into it. The shooting phase is breaking down sequentially into choosing a unit to shoot with, choose the target, choose your ranged weapon, resolve the attacks, and this is the important bit now because this has many subsections. We have to make a roll to hit, we have to make a roll to wound, you have to allocate the wounds to the enemy, and then the enemy makes saving throws, and then you look at what damage has been inflicted. So this is quite a big phase really compared to the ones we've looked at in terms of psychic and movement so far. There's a lot going off, so this will be a bit longer, this clip I think. I have my Inceptor squad, and I got it right this time, lined up against a unit here of Pox Walkers. I am choosing my unit. I'm going to choose the Inceptors. So, what does it say I can do? First I must pick my unit to shoot with. I may not pick a unit that has advanced or fell back. Good news is they didn't, they only moved, honest. And I can definitely not pick a unit that is within 1 inch of an enemy. With the case of the captain in Gravis armor here, he's within 1 inch of an enemy model, so he cannot fire. But there is an exception to this, and we'll come back to it later, which is if he had a pistol, he would be able to use that. Now, the next thing I need to do is choose my target. Well, as I've already mentioned, that's a fairly straightforward task here. I've got these Pox Walkers bearing down on me, and my super duper Marines are quaking in their boots, so they really want to take them out. In order to target an enemy unit, a model that is from that unit must be within range of the weapon being used, as listed on the profile and visible to the shooting model. And this is where the term line of sight comes in, but in this case they don't use line of sight anymore. What they say is just stoop down and have a look.
So the range characteristics on the data sheet are just as all the other characteristics and special rules are?
Yeah, so let's just have a look at what they've got. These are armed with assault bolters. Now they've got a range of 18 inches. They're assault 3, strength 5, -1 AP, and they do 1 damage. But the important bit I'm looking at now is the range, 18 inches. And I am definitely within 18 inches. If I stoop down, I can definitely see them. Obviously, the reason they ask you to do things like that is there may well be a case where if I was to stoop down and I was parked behind some terrain, then I wouldn't be able to see.
But would, say for instance, like that was there, like let's say for instance these two intercessors can't see these guys, and then the one model in the unit can he still shoot?
Absolutely, yes. If each individual model can make line of sight and see the target, then they can shoot. It goes on to say, models cannot target an enemy unit that is within 1 inch of friendly models. The risk of hitting your own troops is too great. And that's interesting wording, because that's changed now. Before it used to be you can't shoot into combat, but now you can't shoot at an enemy within 1 inch of a friendly model. Now there are some rules for advanced play and things like kill teams where you've got multiple teams, multiple players on the board. So now, in theory, you could shoot into, if you've got a 4-player game, and there's a combat taking place between 2 of your opponents, I mean, in theory, you can just shoot away into that.
Friendly model.
No friendly models there. Could get quite fun. Okay, the next thing I need to do is to choose my ranged weapon. So, the weapons a model are listed on its data sheet. If a model has several weapons, it can shoot all of them at the same time. And it can shoot each different weapon at a different enemy unit. So, yeah.
So 3 targets, if you've got 3 weapons, you can take a shot with each weapon at each unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people familiar with 7th edition, this is probably one of the biggest changes. There was a rule called split fire, which allowed you to do that across the unit, but I think for the first time now we're seeing a really thematic rule. And one of my favourite examples of this would be the Eldar Wave Serpent, or any of the Eldar tanks. In fact, the Fire Prism. The Fire Prism has this huge gun on top, which was designed to destroy tanks. But But underslung, you could have a shuriken catapult or a shuriken cannon. And if you read the story about those, the idea of that secondary weapon was to pick off infantry as they approached the tank, while the main gun was shooting away at large opponents across the board. And with this rule now, you can do that, and it feels fantastic. You know, you have your line of tanks, and they're using all their small weapons to take out infantry who are getting too close, and at the same time blowing units up across the other side of the board. So I really like that. Next thing we need to look at is the number of attacks. Each time a model shoots a ranged weapon, it will make a number of attacks, and you roll 1 dice for each attack being made. The number of attacks a model can make with the weapon, and therefore the number of dice you roll, is found on the weapon's profile. And as I've already said, with the assault bolter, it's got assault 3. So that's the type of weapon. So I roll 3 dice, and we'll come back to what assault means.
Is that for each gun that he's got?
Yes. So each one of these is carrying 2 guns. So that's 6 dice per model. So in this shooting phase, I'm going to be using 18 dice.
That's a lot of shots.
It's a lot of fun. I'm glad you're playing the Poxwalkers.
I'm not at this minute in time.
There is a section on characters as well in the core rulebook, and it says some models are noted as being character on their data slate. These heroes, officers, prophets, warlords are powerful individuals and have a great impact on the course of a battle. The swirling maelstrom of the battlefield can make it difficult to pick out such individual targets, however. A character can only be chosen as a target in the shooting phase if they are the closest visible enemy unit to the model that is shooting. This does not apply to characters with wound characteristics of 10 or more due to their sheer size. So this is big now. This is great. You can have a character that's providing a whole bunch of bonuses to units, but as long as you keep it surrounded by a whole bunch of other units.
The characters now need, for the smaller characters that is, they need meat shields.
Yeah.
See, the one worry I did have with characters not being being able to join units now was that fact that, well, my opponent's now just going to shoot it with a big gun. It's going to die instantly. So now with them having to be the closest unit, I'm not so worried about it now.
Yeah, and Games Workshop did address this, didn't they? They made a point between Guilliman and Magnus. And that's where that, the wound characteristic of 10, because Guilliman was 9 wounds, he can't be targeted. He can walk around amongst his new Primaris Marines and he's perfectly safe. But Magnus is this towering demon. It doesn't matter where he is on the field. If you want to point a tank and try and take a shot at him, then it's possible.
Yeah.
So again, a nice work that they've done. I mentioned that the assault bolter I want to use constitutes as an assault type weapon. So the next page in the core rulebook, they talk about weapon types. So there are 5 types of ranged weapons: assault, heavy, rapid fire, grenade and pistol. And basically a model shooting one of these weapons can make a number of attacks equal to the number written on the profile. For example, firing assault 1 weapon makes 1 attack. Firing a heavy 3 weapon can make 3 attacks. But let's just have a little look at what those different weapon types do. Assault weapons. They fire so rapidly or indiscriminately that they can be shot from the hip as warriors dash forward in combat. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
But what does that mean in terms of the game? That means that a model with an assault weapon can fire even if it advanced earlier in the turn. If it does so, you must subtract 1 from any hit rolls made when firing the weapon.
Okay, so this Intercessor Squad could have advanced in the movement phase and still take these shots because the weapon is an assault weapon.
Wow.
So fast moving and lots of shots. But there is a negative of being -1 to hit.
Yeah, which it represents charging forward and just shoot it away. So great, it works for me. It's a really, logical rule that works well. Heavy weapons are the biggest and deadliest guns on the battlefield, but requiring reloading, careful setup, or bracing to fire for the full effect. So again, what does that translate to in terms of the game? If a model has a heavy weapon moved in its preceding movement phase, so immediately before the psychic phase and shooting, you must subtract 1 to hit roll made when firing the weapon.
Okay.
So that's a bit like the negative you get from running, doing the advanced move with an assault weapon, you get -1. Simply moving with a heavy weapon gives you a -1. So they're best employed in an emplacement. You know, you position them on your board and keep shooting away.
Well, one thing that may come in here is that there might be some squads where they have a special rule where that doesn't affect them if they have heavy weapons. Although it doesn't to this Intercessor squad. I can't think of an example right now.
Dark Reapers mainly, they used to have a rule, didn't they? Yeah.
They may have it as, obviously they've got heavy weapons, long range, nasty guns, but they're just going to be able to move like normal and still fire.
Okay. Next is rapid fire. These rapid fire weapons are versatile weapons capable of aimed a single shot at a long range or controlled bursts of fire at a close range. So again, makes sense logically. What does it mean in terms of the game? Rapid fire weapons double the number of attacks it makes if its target is within half of the weapon's maximum range. So if you have a gun that has rapid fire 1 and say 12 inches, if you're shooting at an enemy within 6 inches, you get to roll 2 dice instead.
Yeah.
Which is good. Grenade. So here's definitely a change from 7th edition. Grenades are handheld explosive devices that a warrior throws at the enemy while their squad mates provide covering fire. Each time a unit shoots, a single model in the unit is equipped with a grenade, may throw one instead of firing the other weapon. I say it's changed, that rule hasn't changed, but it certainly has changed how grenades are resolved when you're in cover and those kind of things. I know that grenades are more effective against units in cover, aren't they? When you're in a ruin, if you drop a grenade through the window, it all goes terribly wrong for everyone. And the last point what to mention really is pistol. So pistols are carried one-handed and can even be used in combat to shoot at point-blank range. So many warriors carry one as a sidearm along with their primary weapon. A model can fire a pistol even if there are enemy units within 1 inch of its own unit, but it must target the closest enemy unit. In such circumstances, the model can shoot its pistol even if other friendly units are within 1 inch of the same enemy unit. Each time a model equipped with both a pistol and another type of ranged weapon, i.e. a pistol and rapid fire shoots, it can either shoot with its pistol or its other weapon, and you have to choose which it will fire with, pistol or non-pistol, before making hit rolls. Right. So there's an exception. You've got 2 weapons, but you can only choose one of them. So another kind of interesting rule. So if our captain in Gravis armour was to have a pistol, he would be able to target the Poxcaster, the Plaguecaster, but he couldn't target this unit over here, which again makes perfect logical sense, doesn't it?
See, this is something I quite like that they've added now, because before, if you think about battles going on, if someone's got a gun, although if you can combat close range, if you've got a gun, you're still going to use the gun. So although they haven't made it that every single weapon can do that, I'm glad that they put in at least pistols can now do it when you're in combat.
I need to choose my unit to shoot with. I've done that. Select my target, my eligible target. I've done that. I've chosen my ranged weapon. They've only got one ranged weapon, which is the assault bolter. They carry
that's 3 shots each on each gun.
3 shots each. They've got 2 assault bolters, as per my data sheet here, which means 6 shots each. I'm going to fire 18 shots. Now this is an important point. I could choose some of these models to actually target a different unit if I wanted to.
So do you mean if there was, say for instance, we had 2 Pox units here, Pox walking units, so they've got one there, you could decide to have this one guy on the end shoot a different unit to the other 2.
Absolutely. Say there's only a few guys, maybe 3 or 4 Pox walkers left, and I think I've got a good chance of taking them out. I'll say, well, I'll remove the rest of that unit and then reduce that unit
so it's
down
a tactical
with the other 2
choice to do
shots. Absolutely, yeah.
So that would work the same then if you've got, say you've got a unit of 10 and there's one guy in there that has a specialist weapon, so it might be a heavy weapon that's more designed for monsters or vehicles. You could have that one lone dude shoot at that enemy and then the rest of them can shoot a standard unit.
Yeah, much like, it's a brilliant example, Mike, because much like the tank we talked about, what you'd have is the small arms fire unit protecting the heavy weapon team that's within them. So the heavy weapon team's blowing a tank up on the other side of the board, while the small arms ones are shooting away at infantry as they get closer. Perfect sense, and also I think it's going to add a lot of fun to the game.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, I need to roll 18 dice at you, so the question is what do I need to roll? Well, what I need to do is to look at the ballistic skill, and I have a 3+ ballistic skill. So I'm going to roll all 18 dice.
Okay.
Anything that's 3 or more is a hit.
So let's remove the misses.
Wow, that's a good roll.
I think you've only missed with 3.
That seems statistically sound. I've only missed with 3. The next thing I need to do is to roll to wound. So if an attack scores a hit, you will then need to roll another dice to see if the attack successfully wounds. To do that, there's a chart, and it's really straightforward. You compare the strength of the weapon against the toughness of the target.
Okay.
And your poxwalkers have a toughness of
3.
3.
So not very tough.
Not very tough. I'm already chuckling. I've got a strength of 5. So I'm going to look down this chart. So first and foremost, is the strength twice or more than the toughness? No. I'd need 6. So it's strength 5. So the next one down, is the strength greater than the toughness? Yes, it is. 5's greater than 3, so I need a 3 to wound. If it was equal, I'd need a 4. If it was lower, I'd need a 5. And if it was less than a half or less, I'd need a 6. So you can see how that strength and toughness really plays out now. Nice and simple. I know I'm greater than you, but not double, so I'm a 3+ to wound.
Okay.
So roll this rather appalling hit roll into wounds. Yes, I think we're going to be using these blue dice more often.
I think that's 14 wounds.
So, 14 wounds, I need to allocate the wound. So if an attack successfully wounds the target, I think we can class that as a success, can't we? The player commanding the target unit allocates the wounds to any models in the unit. The chosen model does not have to be within range or visible to the attacking unit. So again, another change. If the model in the target unit has already lost wounds, damage must be allocated to the model.
Okay.
So as we saw when we were looking at the psychic phase, and you had a power with your plague caster that inflicted an additional mortal wound, I had to allocate that against the model that had already received a wound.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you've got 14 wounds to allocate against 10 models. So
Yeah.
I think.
Well, the interesting thing with this as well is if in 7th edition it was the model at the front is where you took the wounds first. So now the other choice, you can tactically do it if you've got, going back to if you have a specialist weapon in that unit and it's at the front, you can just start taking them back.
Good point. Good point. The player commanding the target unit then makes a saving throw by rolling a dice and modifying the roll by the armor penetration characteristic of the weapon that caused the damage. For example, if the weapon has an armor penetration of -1, then subtract 1 from the saving throw. So I have an armor penetration of -1, Mike. What is your saving throw?
My saving throw is a 7+.
So you need...
So what that means...
you need an 8.
Yeah, so it's going to take me down to an 8+, but so where I'm on a 7+, what that means is that
the only way you could actually have a saving throw, a normal saving throw, is to somehow have a positive modifier to your saving throw. And the kind of things that give positive modifiers are essentially cover save. But interestingly enough, a -7, and then you're now at an 8+.
an 8+.
So you don't even have a save, Mike.
No. However, I do have a special ability though. Disgustingly resilient. Each time a poxwalker loses a wound, roll a d6. On a roll of a 5 or a 6, it does not lose that wound. Okay, so let's take all the fails out. I've managed to pass 3.
Out of 14. So that's 11 wounds to be allocated.
The poxwalkers only have 1 wound each.
Ouch.
So you've managed to wipe out the entire unit.
Yes, there you go. Dead. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers most of what we need to do from the shooting phase. There are a few things that they also mention within the core rules that's worth mentioning. Some models have an invuln save, which is an invulnerability save, and what that basically means is it's a save that isn't affected by a modifier. So if you had, for instance, a 4 or a 5 up invulnerability save, then it doesn't matter what my modifier is in terms of armor piercing, armor penetration, you would still get that save on modified. So that's very, very useful, certainly for things like characters who are taking shots for some super heavy weapons. Having that invulnerability save is really useful. The next thing to do, and we talked about it a little bit, is terrain and cover. So if a unit is on or within any terrain feature, add 1 to the model's saving throw against shooting attacks to represent the cover received from terrain. So if you were hiding on the top of that crate, then you could have had a 6-up save at least, although then it would be
there's still the
modifier which takes you to 7. Shooting phase, there's a lot more involved in the shooting, and of course you really need to be up to speed with your data slates in terms of what the weapons can do and what they're capable of doing, and how special weapons and terrain and cover affect your unit. So probably so far the biggest of the turns we've covered so far. But again, if you get to know your army, follow the sequence point by point.
Yeah, and having the data sheet, having the characteristics there in front of you makes everything, there's less for you now to have to work out.
Yeah. I think one of the things we've come to is terrain and cover has really been simplified. It appears to be just a +1 save. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you're doing. We've not found any reference yet in the rule book to say what it will do that or how you can impact on that. But it's still interesting to see how they've simplified things now. You've not got to know too much about it. You can just get on with the game.
My guess would be it's going to be from hero abilities. This way you're getting better bonuses from it.
Makes sense. Okay, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next part.
Bye.
Bye.